As the 2024 election season is coming to a close, I'd like to offer some words of encouragement how to survive this election season. Hello, everyone. This is Tara with Be Well Healthy Living. Today's topic is going to be a little bit, um, I'm not going to get into divisive territory. I'm not going to be talking one way or the other, just a little bit about my background. I am not part of the two-party system. I'm neither Republican or a Democrat. So I'm going to be coming in this video, I'm going to be coming across as a neutral ground. And there's a lot of craziness out there right now with the election season. And I want to be able to kind of bring some rational points so how you can survive this crazy divisive time in our country. As we look around, we can see everywhere that there is so much division right now in our country with, are you on the red team or are you on the blue team? There's even division in the green and gold camps, so to speak. So there's just division everywhere about what is right for our country. Now, it's okay to feel what you feel. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's how we relate to one another during this process that I'd like to discuss. I am really concerned about the mental state. Mental health in America is not good already to begin with. Then throw on some challenging times, and a lot of people really haven't learned the skills necessary how to cope with people that think different than them, people who act different than them, people who look different than them, people who are just different, or people actually speaking their mind. And when one person some people are better at it than others. And when one person speaks their mind, the other person might become offended. And there's just a lot of mixed up stuff when it comes to relating how we relate to others in everyday life, and throwing on the fuel to the flame there with the political environment. It just makes things um, much more amplified. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the ways how we got here, why there's so much division as one possibility, and then I'm going to talk about what you can do as how you can what you can do to implement change where you're at, how you can relate to others surrounding you. So the first thing I'd kind of like to talk about is that everyone has a unique point of view. Everyone has lived a different life. They don't have that unique set of experiences that you do, perhaps. They have a different upbringing, a different background. They have different everything around them. They have different personality, different temperaments. So they're going to see things differently. It would not be a good world if we were all created exactly the same, like cookie cutter people. That's not how we are. We are all humans having this human experience, and we all have a different set of unique circumstances that makes our life. So everyone's going to have a different perspective on how they view the world around them. Most people are well meaning, they have really good intentions. But you have to remember, in their unique set of circumstances, not only do they have that, but they are also influenced by outside circumstances, outside sources. And that's what I'd like to kind of get into, is those external circumstances that can change the way a person perceives the world around them. So there's two main things in that, and that the first one is propaganda, and the second one is journalism. And I'm going to refer to that as I go back a little bit later. But the first one is propaganda. So, what is propaganda? Propaganda is designed to specifically influence opinions, feelings, the way people think. That is the sole design of propaganda. Now, in 1939, a book was written, The Art of Propaganda, and it was a study about the different techniques that are used in propaganda. And they outlined 7 different types of propagandas. Now, I'm going to be going through each and every one. And as I'm going through it, I want to ask you, have you seen the talking heads on television use these particular tactics? Have you seen political ads or commercials use these particular types of tactics? So here are the 7 types of propaganda that you might be exposed to. So propaganda tactic number 1 is name calling. And that is basically as the name implies. It's when the persuader would utilize tactics of name calling to defame the opponent or defame the idea that they want people to go against. Can you think of a specific time in our recent political uh, campaigns in 2024 that you have seen name calling being used? The second propaganda technique is called glittering generalities. That makes the object, whether it's a person or a thing, sound better than what it actually is. It's using everything, descriptive words to invoke an emotional response. The third propaganda technique is called transfer. That's when there's use of symbolism, like the American flag, that invokes this feeling of trust. So when you see a person, let's say, for example, in a picture with an American flag, that invokes trust in the person or a patriotic spirit. Or let's just say, for example, their picture is taken with a child or a baby. That invokes, again, a feeling of trust. The fourth propaganda technique is called testimonial. That's basically when you have a celebrity endorsement. Pretty simple, right? How many times have we seen celebrity endorsements in our current political campaigns? The fifth propaganda technique is called plain folk. That's when the average everyday American gets on stage and talks about their experience. That's when they say how great an object or an item is. The sixth propaganda technique is called card stacking. That's when excessive focusing on the positive traits and downplaying the negative traits of themselves or the intended object. And the seventh propaganda technique is called bandwagon. That's when everyone else is doing it, you should too. So now, as I go over these again, name calling, glittering generalities, transfer, testimonial, plain folk, card stacking, and bandwagon, I'm sure probably several examples of each of these can come to your mind. So propaganda has been used for a very long time. A lot of us are familiar with this particular image that denotes a sense of patriotism in America in rallying the troops to go to war. So it has been used. There are so many examples through the years of how propaganda was used to persuade, to move people to have different opinions about things. Sometimes they're exaggerated. Sometimes different techniques are used. Sometimes all of them are used. Most of the time, all of them are used. So that's something to be aware of, is how your emotions and mental state is being manipulated by external circumstances, by those external propaganda techniques, and say, aha, this is something that's a propaganda technique. They're trying to persuade me, and they're using these particular techniques to change my opinion. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is journalism techniques, in particular, yellow journalism. Yellow journalism is a term that was coined in the late 1800s when William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer were having basically wars against each other in New York City with who was going to read their newspapers more. That's back before the age of internet and everything else. So the newspapers were the major source of news at that particular time. So what was called was yellow journalism. What yellow journalism is it's a style of reporting that exaggerates, that kind of turns it. You might hear it in today's terms called spin. So it's when you take journalistic facts and you take them and you sway them, you exaggerate the points, you put adjectives and descriptive words in there to make it seem um, more dramatic than it actually is, rather than just simply stating the facts. Now, it's kind of referred to something as was in the past. However, yellow journalism is still happening today. Certain news channels, in fact, all of the cable news channels, if you go onto them, all of the cable news channels are basically have become spin factories where they take one form of opinion or another and they change those news facts, and they'll take them and they exaggerate them to sound totally different than the actual factual comment or the actual factual action of what happened. So this is something I want everybody to be aware of, is that the delivery of certain facts can be skewed in such a way that invokes that emotion of fear, that emotion of panic, that emotion of like, oh my gosh. And I'm trying to get you to recognize that there's a lot of external influences at play. So, what I'm trying to do is bring you back level headed so that way you can look, you can research, and you can find what the facts are without any emotional spin on it. So, with all of these outside external influences, it's so important, in fact, more important than ever, that you cross check facts always. Go directly to the source. If somebody says, oh, this person's going to do this or this person's going to do this, and they're playing up those fear factors, I want you to take a look and go deep in search of facts and look for truth, because the truth is factual. Then you can make your decision based off of facts, not somebody else's opinion, not somebody else's propaganda techniques. So the first thing is, in order to survive this political season, is take a good look at how those external influences are affecting you. The second survival tactic is to not accept any type of broad generalization over any type of group of people. So one person's supporters or another person's supporters, to put them all in this particular group with negative names or with negative attitudes, is simply damaging. And the only person it damages is ourself, is our relational skills to how we relate to other people. Now, we had seen that in the 2016 election when Hillary Clinton called all of the Trump supporters basket of deplorables. Now, this actually backfired for her because she had a lot of people coming against her. So I'm not here to say anything one way or the other. I'm just saying that is particular how she took one particular group of people and put a negative name on that entire group of people that were millions of people. So you cannot put generalities on millions of groups of people. The reason why it's so important not to allow that type of speak where you're putting generalities on an entire group of people is because it dehumanizes other people. It dehumanizes both the individual and the group. And we cannot have that type of dehumanization of people. Anytime you dehumanize people, it opens yourself up to judgment, to negative attitudes, to negative beliefs. It basically takes you down that negative spiral of hate and all those negative energies that are going to fill your heart. And that's something that you don't want to do. So you cannot dehumanize entire groups of people or even a single person. Another tactics that you can do to survive this political season is avoidance. They say don't talk religion and politics. However, I don't subscribe to that point of view. And the reason why is because, yes, you can avoid it, keeps the peace, but it's like a band-aid. It's just like a symptom. Because what you're really doing is you're not really invoking trust in another person. You're not getting to the bottom of it. You might know, like, for example, that your neighbor is on the opposite team that you are. And you might have decided to not talk about it. And that's a fine tactic if you feel like that's what's best for you. However, I actually would like to go further and find out why. Just simply ask, hey, I'm just curious, what are the reasons why you are voting for so and so, without judgment. And that's the key. You cannot ask that question if you're coming across condescending, if you're coming across judgmental, if you're coming across with any negative attitude. You cannot approach that person with those attitudes. You have to have a legitimate desire to understand, why does that person think the way I do? So this is going to take me to a recent story that I have with a friend who is voting a particular way. And this a friend does not like to talk um, politics just because he's had a lot of negative experiences with that. So I wanted to know legitimately why he was voting a certain way, because he had made that clear who he's voting for. And I asked him, I said, what are the reasons, or what are the specific policies that you like that want to make you vote that way? Now, I came across, because I legitimately wanted to know, because I care about this person. I think he's a very special person, a very kind-hearted person, very empathetic. And so I really wanted to know what were the reasons why he wanted to vote that way. And we were able to have some discourse back and forth. It wasn't even discourse, we were able to discuss it. And it was great because not only did he explain to me why he was voting a certain way, I was able to hear that, accept that, and be like, okay, great. Thank you for sharing. Because it took a lot for him to open up and to share that, but also because he trusted that I wasn't going to come back at him and lambast him with all kinds of ugly names and rhetoric. He knew that it was a safe conversation to have. And I appreciate that. And that's why I personally prefer having conversations rather than avoidance, because it allows for the ability to build trust and intimacy with your friends and loved ones. Because when you can share ideas and when you share beliefs, and even when you don't agree, it's okay. But you are sharing in a safe space where you know that I can share my deeply held beliefs without without you, that other person coming back to berate me, to talk negatively to me and about me. So it is a really great opportunity to build trust and intimacy, and without that judgment. But again, you have to put aside judgment and you seriously have to want to know why. The next survival tactic is, I would like you to check anything that is invoking this feeling of fear and anger and hate. These are all negative vibrations. So the more you stew in that hate and that anger and that fear, that's another thing. Fear and anger are so closely related. The more that you stew in those, it's going to have a negative adverse effect on your stress levels, but also how you relate to your fellow human beings. So anything out there that you hear on the news from certain sources, anything that's going to invoke those spirits of fear, hate, anger, check that, because that is the opposite of the spirit of love. We are not to be in a low vibrational energy with those emotions. If we are in a higher vibrational energy of love, so much more positive can come out of that, not only as how we relate to our fellow human beings, but as actually also our own spiritual walk as well. We will be so much healthier. We have less stress levels. We will be happier if we are all more often in a spirit of love. Now, I know it's really hard because to maintain that high vibration all the time is hard. We're human, but that's okay. That is, if you do dip and you feel yourself doing that, check that, understand that, be aware of those emotions. Another survival tactic is that you have to remember that you will never, ever win an argument when you are angry, when you are harsh, when you are belittling, when you are throwing angry words at another person. You will never win the person over. So if you see a person that feels the opposite of you and you're just throwing all this stuff out there that's basically word vomit, and you are trying to persuade them and you think that they're terrible because they're voting a certain way, the thing is, you will never change their minds with that attitude. It's and I see this everywhere, people yelling at each other in coffee shops and streets and everywhere else. People are getting angry and yelling at each other. I'm like, it's not going to solve anything. It's only just stirring up anger and hate in both of the people. So there's a specific verse in the Bible that I'm going to be quoting here. And whether you believe in the Bible or not, I think it's perfect wisdom for everybody. And that is, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1. I think that is perfectly said. You can't add to that. And so just remember, if you are talking with a person about tough issues, remember, if you're approaching them with anger and hate, you're not going to get anywhere. The only way you're going to have a productive conversation is if you legitimately want to know why they believe the way they do. And what you'll probably be surprised at, most often, the person actually sees the person they are voting for is the caring, empathetic thing to do. So people on both sides are going to be voting for that person because they think they both care for their country. They both want what's best for other people. They both want the same thing. They have different ways of seeing it. So that's why it's so important to have these conversations. If you do have these conversations, that you are doing it from a spirit of love. Now, it's okay to agree to disagree. At the end of these conversations, sometimes people are not going to change their mind, and that's okay. You just have to let it be. And then that's when you would say, we just agree to disagree. But the great thing is that you don't have to lose any friendships. You don't have to lose any relationships with family members over something so silly as a political candidate. I mean, I think it's ridiculous that lifelong friendships are blowing up, or family members aren't talking to each other anymore because of who they're voting for. And I think it is so silly because it doesn't have to be that way. So, the last survival tactic I'd like to offer is to just remember that if you are unhappy with the results of the election, if you are unhappy with what you are seeing, you have more power in the community around you than you do on the federal level. Yes, this is a national vote. However, your ability to create change, you have much more power in your local city, in your local states than you do in the nation. So what I always encourage people to do, and I've done this for years, is if you are unhappy, get involved, volunteer, start going to meetings, start going to farmers markets, start getting involved, go to your local city council meetings, get to know your city council members. I've seen, and even in my own community, a lot of people sit behind their keyboard. Those keyboard warriors will sit behind and bash the city council members who are doing their hardest to focus on and preserve certain things in our city and to work on certain things in our city. Yet these people have no idea because they don't actually go to a city council meeting. They don't actually have a conversation with our city council members. So it is so important to get involved in the process. You can run for local school boards. You can run for water board. You can get involved with city commissions. I highly recommend, if you are unhappy with the results, if you want to see true change, get involved in your community, because that's where it starts. That's where you will have the biggest impact, because that's when you yourself will be able to share your gifts, share what you're good at, be able to communicate your values, and be able to connect with people one on one. That's where you can make a difference. So just remember, even though this whole thing is going on all around us, you still have power. Do not feel like your power has been taken away from you, because you still have power. You just have to use it and get involved. It is so important to get involved in your local communities. So that's where we build social connections. That's where we build. And when we build those social connections, it's so good for our health. It reduces our stress. It helps us with our mental health. It helps us with our emotional health. So it is so important to get involved. So there are a lot of things I discussed here. This is only meant to be encouraging for you. I want you to know that yes, we are divided right now, but there are things you can do, and that starts with you. That starts with your mental attitude, that starts with your emotional attitude, your social, how you relate to others, your willingness and your want to get to closer to your friends, to your loved ones, to people around you, even to strangers. You know, I had somebody discuss the other day. I was shopping at my local Walmart, and somebody had asked me who I was voting for. But the great thing was is that I didn't feel like this person. I felt this person was coming across with an attitude that was kind, that was generous, and there was not, well, who are you voting for? You know, it wasn't like an angry thing. It was a very kind attitude, and this person legitimately just wanted to know. And so I felt comfortable sharing that. And it's okay, because even though he may have not have, had the same beliefs or opinions, that's okay, because we both respected each other and allowed each other to have our own space and our own opinions, and it was okay. It was just a healthy conversation. So learning those healthy things are so important, and I hope this helps. I hope that I could be encouraging for you, but just remember, I hope you all get out and vote. I know a lot of people have already done early voting already, which is great. We're seeing record turnout for that. But go ahead and get out and vote, and peace, blessings, and good health to everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you I'll go this side, like and subscribe. And that's about it. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.